NANI?!
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Paul, and earlier you saw our good friend Jess on the gun. Be sure to check out our socials if you haven't already done so. So today we're back to giving some love to America's favorite blaster, the shotgun. And I think the real reason why they're so popular and what makes them different from the other guns is their versatility. So whether you're patrolling the ranch or just rolling around the cruiser, or maybe just hosing down your favorite stage, you can see shotguns serving in all kinds of roles. In this video, we're going to take a look at 3 shotguns and how they fulfill each of those roles. Starting with everybody's favorite cheap pump, the Mossberg M500. And if you want to step up to something duty quality and serving in all kinds of units, you have the Benelli M4. And last but not least, if you just want to go fast and you want the latest shotgun tech out there, we're talking about the Beretta 1301 Comp Pro. And how these 3 shotguns approach their 3 different roles is separated by their unique designs, their factory offered controls, and their sighting systems and triggers. So we're gonna take a look at that right now, so let's go. Design and profile. So when it comes to the aesthetics of these 3, you're gonna run the full gamut. So first, if you're looking for something that can be fished out of the bottom of a river and still keep on trucking, well, you're really talking about the Mossberg M500A, where regular cleaning and maintenance are optional. So unlike most of its cousins, it comes with a 20-inch barrel. So it sits flush with a 7+1 magazine tube. So even with that, it comes to about 41 inches total length. So a little bit longer than the AR, but still portable enough to be kind of rolling around in your truck or so. So weight-wise, it comes in at just under 7 pounds. So really, it is the lightest of the 3. So it's simple, cheap, and reliable. Because of all that, it's the most numerous of the 3. But if you're looking for something duty grade that's fielded with departments and units worldwide, and that's the Benelli M4. Now, whether you're talking about the black anodized receiver or the phosphate coated barrel, those guys at Benelli really know how to put together a stylish shotgun that looks good. Now, this particular M4 is pretty close to stock, although you can tell it's been upgraded. The furniture has been swapped out to Mesa Tactical, and the mag tube has been upgraded to 7+1. Dimensionally, this one comes with an 18.5 inch barrel, so it's actually shorter than the Mossberg, but because it has a slightly thicker barrel, it's gonna feel a little bit front heavy. But since we have this pistol grip, it's going to make running this gun more manageable. And speaking of running, if you're looking for something that is built for speed, then you're really talking about this one gun, the Beretta 1301 Comp Pro. And just to be clear, this is their latest model. They had 2 prior gens before this one, and we reviewed the Gen 1 in an earlier video from years ago. I'll link it if you haven't seen it. And just like the Mossberg 940 we just looked at, it looks like Beretta took all the lessons from the prior gens and kind of just poured it into this latest model. And they made it decided to look really good too, whether you're looking at the smooth lines all over or the really distinctive blue anodized receiver. Functionally, they did add a lot of new stuff as well, especially with this new recoil reducing stock. Beretta says it reduces recoil at about 40%. Well, when I shot it, I could definitely tell the difference between shooting this and the prior gen model. One other distinctive thing you'll notice is its size. Well, this one comes with a 24-inch vent rib barrel, which is perfect for 3-gun.
But this model also has an aftermarket 12-round mag tube from Tony Systems. From the factory, you get a 10-round mag tube that's flush with a 24-inch vent rib barrel.
So lengthwise, this one is pretty long, comes in at 47 inches, so you're definitely not moving around any corners or working inside buildings with this model. Its home is really on a big bay with lots of targets. So just from the design, you can see different audiences for each of these shotguns. So you want something visceral and you want to work for a little bit, like driving a stick shift Volkswagen Golf, then the Mossberg pump's definitely for you. You want something duty grade, but a little bit more refined, well, that's where Benelli M4 comes in. And if you want to race and you want the latest shotgun tech available out there, well then, Beretta 1301. But of course the shotgun is more than it. It's just design and its audience. We have to look at the controls and how it loads, and we'll do that in the next section coming up. Controls and loading. So when it comes to the controls, the biggest question is, how hard do you want to work to make the gun go bang? Well, if we're talking the Mossberg, well, you're going to put in a little bit of work because it is a pump action after all. And depending upon how much dry fire you put in, when you rack the slide, it's either going to be one smooth motion or it's going to be ka-chunk, chunk, ka-chunk. Luckily, this gun's quite old, so the pump action is actually quite smooth. And just remember, you do have to use the action button on the left-hand side of the receiver if you want to unlock the action. Now, the only other control in this very simple weapon is the thumb-mounted safety. And you know from the 940 review, I really like the position of the safety, since your thumb naturally sits there anyways, and you never have to take your hand off fire control. But just remember, it is plastic like the rest of the control, so it probably won't last as long as the aluminum parts on this gun. But when it comes to the M4, since it is an autoloader, you don't have to worry about pumping, and it also comes with bigger and better controls as well. Starting with the factory charging handle, which is large, although the really nice thing is there's a lot of aftermarket support, so you can actually change it to a bigger and better one. And the same holds true for the bolt release lever, because the one that comes with it is small, so you're going to be hunting for it. And located next to the trigger is the safety on the Benelli, so it's a little bit different than the Mossberg, and then yes, you will have to remove your hand from it, although it is decently sized, but it's a little bit stiff to operate. And lastly, if you're talking about caveman size controls, you're really going to like the 1301 controls, which are big.
This model also has a huge charging handle, also aftermarket from Tony Systems, so it's perfect for running it from either hand. The factory charging handle is also really large, carried over from prior gens, so if you want to stick with that, that also works great.
And also the bolt release lever is not only large, but it's been reworked since their prior gens had an issue with accidental activations. And also one thing larger on the 1301 is the safety, and it's located in front of the trigger guard. Unlike the M4, it is actually easy to move between left and right positions and offers great tactile feedback. And since we're in the trigger area, let's talk about the loading port. So when it comes in the Mossberg, well, basically you got a bunch of right angles and you got shell of depth, so everything that makes it hard to load. So you're basically only stuck with loading one shell at a time. Now the good thing is basically once you actually get the shell in there, pushing it into the tube is actually frictionless. This one's been old, so the recoil spring is quite used, so it's actually very easy once you actually get the shell into the port. And since the port is quite small and actually close to the trigger guard, you won't be doing any dual or quad loads with this thing. Chances are you're going to be using some type of side saddle that's on the weapon, over an underhand technique, whichever you prefer, but it is only one shell at a time. Now when it comes to the M4's loading port, it is rounder and smoother than the Mossberg. However, starting with the M4, you are dealing with the lift gate, and that lift gate is held down by spring pressure. So you do have to push a little bit harder to overcome that spring pressure. And also once you overcome that, when you push the shell into the tube, it starts easy, but then there's a little hump inside the mag tube that you have to push a shell to get over, and then it loads smooth. And also on the M4, the lifter is forked toward the end, it's not extended, so take extra care that you don't get your thumb get caught in there, or you're gonna end up bloody. And because on this M4, it's got a pistol grip, so quad loading is gonna be an issue. So chances are you're gonna be using a side saddle like the Mossberg, or you can also use little shotgun caddies which hold 4 or 6. So they're great for single loading shells. They can be easily mounted on the belt or vest while remaining low profile. Now, if you want your shells to basically get sucked into the tube, like one of Elon Musk's Hyperloops, then you really wanna look at something like the Beretta 1301 Comp Pro. So taking from lessons from their previous gens, not only did they open the loading gate, they moved the serial number so you can get super aggressive with your cuts like we did with this model. And the lifter is extended, so you don't have to worry about getting your finger get caught up in there. And also once you get the shell starting to move up there, the lifter pressure is very light, so it actually stays up while you're pushing the shell into the tube. And this setup's really made for quad loading, and especially since we got that 13 round tube on there. Basically what that means is you can do 3 quad loads and you're done loading for the stage. So you basically have 13 plus 1 ready to blast away with. This is really the next best thing in having a mag-fed shotgun like a Sega. So everything we mentioned so far has only one goal, to keep the gun running. And that's not a small goal because this is a low capacity weapon. However, to actually run the gun and shoot it accurately, we need to talk about the sighting systems and triggers. And we'll talk about that in the next section coming up. Sights and trigger. So for shotguns, you typically don't think about shooting beyond room distance, but for duty shotguns and especially competition shotguns where you're shooting slugs at distance, that is a requirement. And in order to do that accurately, you really need a good sighting system, the right chokes, and a really good trigger. So for the Mossberg, even though it's got a long enough 20-inch barrel for accuracy, it's not a vent rib barrel, so aligning it with your eye is a little bit of an issue. And at the end of the barrel, you just have a bead sight, so it's a little bit hard to aim, and all those are factors in getting not that great accuracy beyond 25 yards. And even at 25 yards, the accuracy is only so-so. But when it comes to the M4, even though it's a shorter barrel, 18.5 compared to the Mossberg, you get ghost ring sights with it. And like they are, those ghost ring sights really help in alignment. So you have the rear peep, which allows you to center the front fork, and at the end you have a fiber optic. Using that combination, we shot really good groups of this M4. It does come in a factory mod choke, and you can get additional chokes with it if you'd like. So your other combination as far as aiming is the vent rib plus fiber optic combo, and you find that in the Beretta 1301. Basically you use the front fiber optic with the mid beat in the center for your windage, and you just check it against the vent rib to ensure it's flat. And using that combo, we got very good accuracy with that, especially since this is a 24-inch barrel, which is the longest of the 3. Now it does come with 3 chokes, IC, cylinder, and IM, which are the perfect 3 chokes for any 3-gun stage. Now the other factor when shooting slugs at range, and as far as accuracy, is having a really good trigger. And you probably won't be surprised that the Mossberg M500 has not that great of a trigger since it's a factory trigger. We put it on the trigger gauge and it said 5.5 pounds, even though like when I looked up specs, it said like 8 pounds or so. So this shotgun's been around a while, so that helps to have smoothed out the trigger a bit. And since it's a pump anyway, you probably don't need to run the trigger fast because really your limiting factor is the pump action anyways. Now, when it comes to the M4, those guys at Benelli really took that duty trigger name to a little bit too seriously, because we put this thing on a trigger gauge and it was around 7.5 pounds. So it's actually even heavier than the Mossberg. The good news here is there are several aftermarket triggers you can get for them, and I would probably do that. You can actually run this gun pretty fast because since this is Benelli's first gas gun, it cycles really fast and it recoils a lot smoother than its inertia guns. Now, if you're a fan of good triggers, then you're really gonna love the 1301 trigger. It's very similar to a rifle trigger in that it's a very smooth pull throughout. There's very little stacking and a very crisp break. And when we put this trigger on our trigger gauge, we measured it only 4 pounds, which is kind of crazy for a shotgun trigger. So what this means is as long as you have the sights aligned and you pull the trigger, you're gonna hit it because it's kind of really hard to jerk this trigger. So with this quick reset, you can run this shotgun really fast, and especially with this new recoil system, this thing shoots really flat. So I think if you had to rank these 3 in terms of shootability, I think the winner is pretty obvious. It's a 1301, in that if you were to hand this gun to a new person, their chances of hitting a target and feeling the least amount of recoil are gonna be really high. But in second place, I think the M4 is doable in that the trigger is really heavy, so that's really hard to work, but the ghost ring sights are so good that you'll be able to hit long range targets no problem. And most likely, if you're shooting the Mossberg, you're doing it out of nostalgia and you've put a ton of rounds through it and you're one of an experienced shooter, so running a pump action does not bother you in the least. All right, fellas, we're back. So what did you think of the 3 shotguns presented here? Well, after we pointed out how the unique designs, controls, and shootability all contribute to the different roles, I still think you can see a lot of similarities between all the three different shotguns. One thing I've noticed is, as a trend, if you were to look at shotguns as an aggregate, I'd bet you they have the least amount of rounds through them compared to your pistols and rifles. Hey, I'm guilty of that myself. It's a lot more fun to just blast away with my pistol and rifle and not have to worry about, hey, reloading or feeling too much recoil. While that's true, I think a lot of people are missing out on the uniqueness and versatility of this weapon system if you take the time and learn it. And I'll offer this one thought a buddy told me a long time ago. You can be Jerry Mitchell on a pistol, but even he could not put 9 .30 caliber bullets into a group this size in less than a second. So that's what the kind of power the shotgun brings to the game. And I think if you just train with it and give it a shot, it's well worth it. And that's my final thought on it. Hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please give this video a like, comment, and share it with your friends so this small channel can keep growing. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys next time.